Hey everybody, I hope you're having a great day today. As you can see with my channel, I usually talk about mental health stuff, but the last couple of videos I've been doing, they have more to do with the automotive industry. And mental health is my passion. That's where my life is at right now. I want to be a mental health advocate, but my background, my automotive background, is with a company called Lemon Squad Auto Inspections. It's a large national auto inspection company that I founded many years ago, and a few years ago I sold. So that's another one of my passions, is cars and helping the consumer from getting ripped off. So I thought I'd just talk about some things that I've seen over the years with automotive, in the automotive industry, dealers and car sellers in particular, and how they try to rip off customers. So with all my years in the automotive industry with Lemon Squad, we were in the business, and that company is still in the business of helping customers not get ripped off, not buying a car that isn't a good car. And let's talk about dealers and some of the things that they do to try to pull the wool over your eyes when you're out trying to buy a good used car from them. So just about any issue you could think of with a car, there's probably a way around it to hide it or mask it so that just until it sells. It's going to come back, and it might even come back worse, but try to mask it while it's sitting on the lot and they're trying to sell it. So one of the things, check engine lights. Everybody that I know that's had a car has had a check engine light come on at some point. And it's really easy to fix that. You erase the code. That's it. So if you know you got a customer coming out to look at it, you know there's an issue with the car causing the check engine light to come on, erase the code. It's going to come back, but it might not come back right away. It might come back in a week. It might come back in a minute. But a lot of times it takes a while. The engine and the computer are working together, or whatever's causing that code to go off, that the computer needs to see that whatever that failure is fail a certain amount of times before it'll trigger that light to come on. And that certain amount of times might take a while for that to happen. So usually they can get you into that car, get you driving it, test driving it, love it, and not have the light come on. So a real common thing, the most common thing, is erase the code before you get there, or before we get there as an automotive inspector. That's the first thing. Second thing is fluid leaks. Well, if you got an engine oil leak, it's really, and maybe it's not a bad leak, maybe it takes a little bit for it to accumulate. They can pressure wash all that off there before we arrive, and we don't see any oil leak. It's going to come back, and it's going to eventually get worse, but for the time being, it looks nice and clean. So that's another way. There's also additives you can put into the oil, and what it does, it's almost like, can you picture like a rubber seal, something rubber, put it into some gasoline, that seal will start to stretch and get bigger. It's also gotten thinner, and it gets really soft, and it's gonna go bad right away, but for a minute it's bigger. Think of this, you're pouring gasoline, which it's not gasoline, but it's the additive is kind of does the same thing. You put it in the engine, it gets to those engine seals, the rear main seal, the front main seal, head gaskets, not necessarily head gaskets, I guess, but other seals in the engine that might be leaking, valve seals. And it'll expand them to where they won't leak. So now you got these oil leaks, they're not leaking now. These fluid leaks, but it's going to get, now that they've done that, all the seals should be replaced because they're going to expand. They're going to help it seal for a minute, but they're also going to be really weak, and they're going to fail really soon. If the ones that even were good are going to fail soon now because of doing that. So there's an additive for that. Maybe you got a head gasket leak. Pour it in additive into the coolant. Now the head gasket's fixed, right? No, it's not. But this additive masks that. It plugged up the hole. Just temporary. It also plugged up your heater core too. So now you're not going to have the heat you're supposed to have, plus the head gasket still needs it replaced, but you don't know that. You thought the car checked out great. You're going to take it home, and within a very short time, you're going to have a few $1,000 job you have to do to replace that head gasket, and possibly more. So those are some things that we find as inspectors out there and watch these guys do, but there's others as well. Because it has a clean Carfax, does that mean it's a good car? Does that mean it's a really good, clean car just because Carfax said it was? No, not at all. Carfax has never went out there and looked at that car. They don't know anything about that car. So you buy a Carfax report, they can report on things that have been brought to their attention. through different means, different ways they gather information. But that doesn't mean that it's a good car just because they said it's good. Most of the cars we look at that were absolute junk with Lemon Squad had a clean Carfax. Just so you know, that was how it is. And as a matter of fact, most of the cars we looked at that had previous accident damage never showed it on Carfax. And how we found it was we use a tool called a paint meter. And I'll explain to you how that paint meter works. It's a tool, it's kind of about like this, maybe thinner, and it has a screen on it. On one end and on the other end, you put it down on the body of the car. Now the body has to be metal for this to work. So a lot of times this won't work. This isn't really one, but a paint meter won't work if you put it on a fiberglass or a plastic bumper or anything. It has to be on metal. And what it's doing is, when you set it down on the paint, it's not really measuring the thickness of the paint, it's measuring a distance. It's measuring the distance between where you put it on the paint and the metal below. And it measures in mils, not millimeters, but mils. And I would say 4.5 mils around there has always been kind of factory thickness. That means it's never been repainted. It's a car that came from the factory with that type of a reading, 4.5 mils. But anything over that, when it starts getting thicker, 10 mils, 15 mils, it starts to mean it was repainted. And depending on how thick you get it, that means its body filler has been added as well. So if we see 75 mils, we know that's not just repaint. There's Bondo in there too, which is also body filler, the same thing. And we know that it's been repainted. Now, in a lot of cases, we'll put that down, and it gives us an infinite sign on the tool, which means it's so thick, it can't even read through it. So now the Carfax says it's a clean car. Visually, we don't see any accident damage. It looks mint, but our tool goes, whoa, hold on. This thing is full of Bondo. And it was in a major wreck. And as a matter of fact, we look at a lot, when I was with Lemon Squad, we looked at a lot of certified pre-owned vehicles. Now the deal with a certified pre-owned vehicle is typically never been in an accident, has to have under a certain amount of miles, and all the parts that were put into it to get it ready for sale had to be factory parts. We'd go out and look at those cars and we'd see accident damage all the time on those cars. We'd also see that they didn't use factory parts when they did their reconditioning, getting it ready for sale. There's so many scams in this industry, it's unbelievable. I've seen a car with a salvage title only to look at it 6 months later and now the title's clean. It's clean. So anyway, so that's called scrubbing a title. I'm not sure of the process of that. That's the term for it, and it happens. So just because it's got a clean title doesn't mean it wasn't a salvage title not that long before. And what can cause a salvage title? Major accident damage. It was more expensive to fix it than it would be just to replace it, basically. So that's one reason to have a salvage title. Another reason is it was in a flood. And I'll talk about salvage title cars and flood cars in another video because we've looked at a ton of those and sometimes they can be a good deal. So, never a flood car though. Never a flood car. Never a good deal. And I know some people bought them and they've had really good luck with them. My experience is it's not worth the risk. More people have issues with those than they don't have with them. So yeah, one gets through every now and then that turns out to be a good vehicle. Not often. But those are some scams that we see on a regular basis with these car sellers. And it can be anything from a small independent mom and pop used car lot, but it can be the dealer too. We see it all the time with the dealer. As a matter of fact, excuse me guys, the dealers will get their vehicles, a lot of their used cars comes from auctions, and they're looking them over at the auction. Well, I've been to the auctions with these dealers, and I've been watching them. They bid on these cars to get them to get them back to their place so they could sell them. They never use a paint meter at the auction. I've never seen it happen. So they're buying these cars. A lot of times they don't even know that this car was in a major wreck. It's full of Bondo. They don't even know it. They buy it. They have it shipped back to their lot. It's sitting on their lot. Maybe it's a certified pre-owned. They have no clue that it's been in a major accident. We see those type of things daily at Lemon Squad. When I was there, it would be daily that we would catch this stuff. So, you know, you've got to use a paint meter on one. Hands down, you got to use a paint meter on every car you buy because you don't know what you're buying without it. You can't trust a Carfax report. You can't trust the seller. And, you know, it's dangerous because it could be a major issue. And maybe the car is really still a good car, even though it's had that repaint done to it. But the reality is you're probably paying for a car that is the price of a car that wasn't in an accident. So now you're overpaying for this. Maybe you can live with those issues that we're finding out there, but you want to be aware of them and you want to make sure you're paying the right price. So anyway, those are some things to think about, guys. That's my background. That's what I know. I know the car industry. I know the inspection side of the industry. I was a mechanic for a lot of years, but for a lot more years, I was a owner of an automotive inspection company that was national and had thousands of inspectors running around the country looking at these cars. So I think I'll do a video later on salvage title vehicles, and we'll talk about that. I think that'd be a fun one for us to do too. So I hope you're enjoying these videos. If you are, please hit that subscribe button. If you really like them, hit that notification button over there, and I'll keep pumping these things out. And yeah, I hope you're enjoying them. We'll talk to you on the next one. Take care.